He thought she was invisible. Just another face in an apron, easy to ignore, easier to mock. But that night, under the glow of glass and gold, she spoke, and the whole room forgot how to breathe. It had started like any other Thursday evening at the Silver Finch, an upscale restaurant that smelled of truffles, pride, and expensive secrets. The kind of place where laughter came rehearsed and every smile had a price. At table 7 sat Victor Hale, a venture capitalist with a grin as polished as his shoes. 43, tall and too sure of himself, Victor didn't just dine, he performed. His companions for the night were 2 partners and his fiancée, Sienna, a woman whose silence looked rehearsed. They were celebrating the launch of a new tech acquisition, something that promised more power, more headlines, more of everything Victor loved. "The future belongs to us," he said, swirling his wine like it was a mirror. "You mean it belongs to you?" one partner joked. Victor smirked. "Same thing." Their laughter was sharp, bouncing off crystal and marble. Then came the soft sound of footsteps, heels against tile, steady and careful. Maya approached the table carrying a tray of vintage Cabernet. Her uniform was crisp, her posture straight, her eyes quiet but alert. She was 26, though years of fatigue made her look older. Beneath her calm exterior was a heart that had been bruised, but not broken. "Good evening," she said, placing their glasses gently. Victor didn't look up. "Careful with that bottle," he said. "It costs more than your rent," his friends chuckled. Maya gave a polite nod, masking the sting behind her practiced smile. She had learned to swallow words. Each one she held back bought another meal, another day of medicine for her father back home. Silence had become her second language. When she walked away, Sienna leaned closer to Victor. "Do you always talk like that?" she whispered. "It's called banter," Victor said, grinning. "Keeps people humble." Sienna didn't smile back. Maya steadied her breathing as she refilled water at the next table. The noise around her blurred into a low hum. She used to listen to languages for a living. Tones, accents, the way people meant things they didn't say. Before all this, she'd been a student of linguistics. But one false accusation, one jealous classmate, and it all vanished. Now, the university email still burned in her memory. "Your scholarship has been suspended pending investigation." That night, she'd packed her life into a single bag and boarded the cheapest bus to the city. She didn't know that the same city would soon hear her name everywhere, but that was still to come. Right now, she had a tray, a table full of arrogance, and a decision she didn't know she was about to make. When she returned to table 7, Victor was mid-story, something about buying out a competitor and turning their CEO into an advisor, which everyone knew meant obedient. He looked at Maya again, this time with the smirk of a man looking for sport. "So," he said, tapping the table, "what's your name?" "Maya," she replied. "Maya," he repeated slowly. "That means illusion, doesn't it?" "Yes," she said calmly. "In some languages," he laughed. "Fitting. You almost look real." The table erupted with laughter. Sienna didn't join in. Maya's fingers tightened around the tray, but her voice stayed even. "Would you like anything else, sir?" Victor leaned back. "Maybe just a smile that doesn't look like it's costing you effort." A few nearby diners glanced over. They sensed tension, but said nothing. Maya forced her lips upward, though her chest ached with the weight of swallowed pride. She turned to leave. "Wait," Victor called after her, switching to French this time, a language he assumed she wouldn't know. "Pretty face. Pity she's furniture," he said, smirking to his partners. Their laughter rippled like knives. Maya stopped. Slowly, she turned back. Her heart was racing, but her voice was calm, almost serene. In fluent French, she replied, "I didn't realize ignorance could sound so expensive." The laughter died. Glasses stilled. Victor blinked, caught between shock and disbelief. "What did you say?" She met his gaze. "You heard me, monsieur." Sienna's eyes widened. One of the partners muttered, "Oh, damn!" Victor's jaw tightened, his ego bleeding in front of the crowd. "Get the manager," he snapped, but Maya didn't move. "You wanted a show," she said softly. "Now you have one." The room had gone silent, forks frozen midair. Even the music had become background to her words. For the first time that night, Victor Hale, man of headlines and handshakes, had nothing clever to say. For a moment, nobody moved. The laughter that had filled the air seconds earlier vanished, leaving behind the sound of clinking glass and uneasy breaths. Victor Hale stared at her like he couldn't believe what just happened. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not in public, not in his language, and certainly not from someone who wore an apron. "Say that again," he demanded, voice low, sharp. Maya didn't flinch. "You heard me," she said. "Loud and clear," Sienna whispered. "Victor, please." But he ignored her. He wanted to reassert control, to remind everyone who he was. "You think this is funny?" he hissed. "Mocking customers?" "I didn't mock you," Maya said calmly. "I just answered you in the language you chose." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Clear, steady, filled with a quiet strength that spread through the room. At the next table, a man with a journalist's notepad paused mid-bite. His instincts flared. He pulled out his phone and pressed record. The manager hurried over, face pale, sweat forming at his temples. "Mr. Hale, is there a problem?" "There's a huge problem," Victor snapped. "Your staff thinks it's acceptable to insult paying guests." The manager turned to Maya, his eyes pleading. "Please, just apologize. Let's not make this worse." "For what?" Maya asked softly. "For understanding him? For knowing that respect doesn't depend on the size of a wallet?" Whispers spread through the room. A waiter froze with a tray halfway across the floor. A couple at the bar leaned in, holding their breath. "Enough," Victor barked. "You're fired," the manager stammered. "Maya, please, just—" She unfastened her apron and folded it neatly on the table. Her movements were slow, deliberate, graceful. "You don't have to fire me," she said. "I quit." Then she placed the wine bottle beside Victor's untouched plate and added, "You can keep this one. You've already poured enough bitterness tonight." Gasps rippled around the room. Sienna's eyes glistened with something like shame, or maybe admiration. She didn't look at Victor. She just whispered, "You've gone too far." But he was already unraveling. "You'll regret this," he spat. Maya met his glare one last time. "Maybe, but at least I'll regret something I said, not something I became." She turned, walking toward the door as her co-workers watched silently. Each step echoed louder than the next. Outside, the night air was cold, sharp, and clean. Maya sat down on the curb, pulling her jacket tight around her. Her chest felt both heavy and light, like she'd dropped a burden but didn't yet know the cost. She thought of her father's voice back home. "Stand tall, even when it hurts. Dignity doesn't feed you, but it keeps you alive." For the first time in months, she let herself cry, not from fear, but from release. Back inside, the manager tried to calm Victor down, but it was pointless. His partners had gone silent. Sienna pushed her chair back, grabbed her purse, and stood up. "Where are you going?" Victor demanded. "Home," she said quietly. "You can celebrate your victory alone." When she left, a hush followed her out the door. The journalist who had recorded the scene sat still for a few seconds, then reviewed his video. Maya's calm voice came through perfectly. "Respect doesn't depend on the size of a wallet." He didn't know it yet, but that sentence would travel farther than either of them could imagine. That night, while the city lights blinked awake and the world scrolled endlessly online, he uploaded the clip. Title: The Waitress Who Spoke Back. By morning, the world had seen it. Millions watched as Maya stood unshaken, her voice a quiet thunder against arrogance. Comments poured in, people cheering, crying, arguing. Finally, someone said it. She's a queen. Money doesn't buy respect. At noon, the Silver Finch was surrounded by reporters. The manager tried to hide in his office. Sienna's publicist released a statement, and Victor Hale's name began trending for all the wrong reasons. His PR team called. His investors called. Everyone wanted answers. But the truth was already out there, uncut, unfiltered, and undeniable. Somewhere across the city, Maya's phone buzzed nonstop. Her cracked screen lit up with messages from strangers, journalists, and job offers she never expected. But all she could do was stare at the video in disbelief. Her voice, the same voice she'd trained, lost and found again, had become the sound of something bigger. She whispered to herself, almost like a prayer, silence feeds fear. But words can feed courage. And for the first time, she didn't feel small at all. By sunrise, the video had circled the globe. 30 seconds of courage, though that's all it took. A quiet waitress standing tall while a billionaire's pride cracked like glass. On the other side of the city, Maya's phone buzzed nonstop. Her cracked screen lit up again and again. Messages, tags, friend requests, news notifications. She didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or hide. She scrolled past headlines. The waitress who spoke back. Respect has a new voice. Victor Hale exposed. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Someone else's story. Someone else's name. But there she was. Her voice calm, her eyes steady, her words cutting through arrogance like sunlight through glass. Her inbox was chaos. Reporters wanted interviews. Restaurants wanted to hire her. Activists wanted her to speak. And buried among the noise, one message stood out. It was from Sienna. I'm sorry for staying quiet that night. You were right. Silence helps the wrong people. Maya stared at the message for a long time before replying with 2 words. Thank you. She didn't realize it yet, but that small exchange would change everything for both of them. Meanwhile, Victor Hale's empire began to crumble. By mid-morning, 2 major clients had paused contracts. His board demanded a statement. His PR manager begged him to apologize. Victor sat in his penthouse office, staring at the video on his laptop. His own voice mocked him from the screen. His smirk looked different now. Brittle, foolish, hollow. Then came Maya's line, clear as day. Respect doesn't depend on the size of a wallet. He slammed the laptop shut. Fix this, he barked to his assistant. But no one could. Because for the first time, the internet wasn't laughing with him. It was laughing at him. Across town, the manager of the Silver Finch was sweating through interviews. Cameras followed him out the back door, shouting questions. Was she fired? Did she insult a customer? Did you apologize to her? He shook his head. She didn't do anything wrong, he blurted. If anything, I should have stood up for her. That clip went viral, too. By evening, Maya's name was trending again. Not as a waitress, but as a symbol. People were calling her the voice of grace. A hashtag appeared. Speak with, respect at home. Maya sat on the edge of her narrow bed, the city humming beyond her window. Her father called from their small town, voice trembling with pride. I saw the video, he said. She smiled softly. You'd tell me to keep quiet, wouldn't you? He chuckled weakly. Maybe, but this time I'm glad you didn't. Maya felt a tear slip down her cheek. It wasn't sadness. It was relief. That night, she turned off her phone and looked at the envelope still sitting on her dresser. Her last paycheck from the restaurant. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel powerless. The next morning, her doorbell rang. 2 people stood outside. A woman in a navy coat and a man holding a folder. Miss Perez, the woman asked. We're from Linden University. Maya froze. Linden was the school that had expelled her a year earlier. We saw your interview, the woman continued. It reached our ethics board. Your case was reviewed again. The man opened the folder and held it out. The allegations were false. We're reinstating your scholarship. If you'll have it. Maya's throat tightened. You're serious? The woman nodded. We're deeply sorry for what happened. We can't undo it, but we can help you start again. Maya took the papers with trembling hands. Her heart felt too big for her chest. When they left, she sat on the floor, clutching the letter to her chest, whispering, Dad, they believed me. Later that afternoon, another message arrived. This one, again from Sienna. I left him. That night showed me who he really was, and who I'd become by staying silent. I owe you a thank you I can't put into words. Then another message followed. I work for a nonprofit translation agency. We help refugees and advocacy groups tell their stories. We need people who understand language and empathy. Would you consider joining us? They'll even cover your dad's medical care for 6 months. Maya reread the message 3 times before replying. Her hands shook. Her heart didn't. Yes, she typed. I'd love to. The world didn't stop talking about her. But Maya didn't chase the noise. Instead, she walked into a new office a week later. Shelves filled with books, sunlight on the floor, laughter that sounded real. She wasn't serving tables anymore. She was translating stories, voices that the world usually ignored. Every word she typed felt like a bridge, not a wound. And somewhere, in a high-rise office that used to smell of power, Victor Hale sat alone. His phone buzzed with missed calls and warnings. Investors were backing out. News anchors were quoting her. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to say. He watched the clip again, her steady eyes, her calm voice, and whispered to himself, She destroyed me with kindness. But the truth was simpler. She hadn't destroyed him. She'd revealed him. The world moved fast, but Maya moved slower. She didn't chase the spotlight, she walked right past it. While talk shows debated her story and hashtags burned bright, she slipped quietly into her new life at Beacon Translations, a small, sunlit agency that gave voices to people the world often talked over. The office smelled like ink and coffee. Desks were cluttered with open dictionaries, half-eaten croissants, and laughter that didn't sound forced. For the first time in years, Maya didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was becoming. Her first project was translating medical forms for a refugee clinic. Words like hope, home, and family appeared again and again. Words that once belonged to her, too. Every document she finished felt like repairing a bridge she once thought was gone forever. Her manager, a soft-spoken man named Luis, stopped by her desk one afternoon. You have a gift, he said. Not just for languages, for listening, Maya smiled. Maybe that's what got me in trouble before, Luis laughed. No, he said. That's what made people finally listen. Days turned into weeks, and Maya found her rhythm. Each morning, she walked to work past street vendors calling out in 3 different languages. She'd pause sometimes, buying a paper just to see her story fade farther down the headlines. The world had moved on, but in the best way. Her father's health improved with the help of the agency's medical fund. Every weekend, they'd talk on video call. He'd grin and say, I told you, Hicha, words are your superpower. And she'd laugh. Yeah, but I didn't know they could cause a global storm. Meanwhile, Victor Hale was watching that same storm tear through his empire. One by one, his investors backed out. News channels played the video on loop. The more he tried to defend himself, the worse it got. He hired a PR team, issued an apology, even donated to charity. But sincerity can't be staged. People didn't buy it. Soon, the board asked him to step down. His face, once plastered on magazine covers, disappeared overnight. He retreated to a rented office on the edge of the city, where silence had replaced status. For the first time in his life, Victor had to sit with himself, with the sound of everything he'd ignored for years. He replayed the clip again and again. Her calm voice haunted him, not with anger, but with truth. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't cursed. She'd just held up a mirror. Back in Maya's world, something new began to bloom. A local radio station invited her to speak about dignity at work. She almost said no. Public attention still made her anxious. But Luis encouraged her. "It's not about fame," he said. "It's about meaning." So she agreed. On the day of the broadcast, Maya wore simple black and white, the same colors she used to wear as a waitress. Her hands trembled slightly when the red light blinked on, but her voice was steady. "I didn't plan to become a story," she began. "I only said what I wish someone had said to me a long time ago, that respect isn't a privilege. It's a language we all understand." For a few seconds, there was silence. Then the studio phones lit up. Dozens of calls, messages, people saying thank you. Some had been waiters. Some were teachers. Some were just tired of being invisible. By evening, that short interview had been clipped, shared, and translated into 6 languages. Someone online started calling her the voice of respect. And this time, the title didn't feel heavy. It felt right. One afternoon, Sienna dropped by her office. She looked different, lighter, freer. She handed Maya a small paper bag. "Coffee?" she asked. Maya laughed. "You came all this way for coffee?" Sienna smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to see the woman who reminded me what decency looks like." They sat by the window, the city humming beneath them. "You know," Sienna said, "I used to think power was about control, but now I see it's about presence. You had more of it in one sentence than Victor had in his whole career." Maya smiled gently. "I wasn't trying to be powerful. I was just tired of being quiet." Months passed. One morning, a small magazine ran a photo of Victor Hale at an airport. Unshaven, alone, suitcase in hand. The headline read, "The Fall of a King." Maya saw it while buying her morning paper. She looked at it for a second, then turned the page. No anger, no satisfaction. Just peace. He had learned his lesson, even if it came too late. And she had learned hers. That silence might protect your job, but never your soul. That evening, Maya was invited to speak at a university. The same one that had once expelled her. The lecture hall was full. Students lined the aisles holding notebooks, phones, and hope. She walked to the podium, heart steady. "This place once took everything from me," she said softly. "But now it's giving me something better. The chance to remind you that words matter. They can build bridges, or they can burn them. Choose wisely which ones you stand behind." When she finished, the room erupted in applause. The dean stood by the door, smiling through tears. "Welcome back, Miss Perez," he said. Maya smiled. "I never really left," she replied. "I just took the long way home." That night she returned to her apartment where the city lights flickered through the window. Her father's framed photo sat on her desk beside a cup of tea. She looked out at the skyline. The same city that once broke her, now holding her story like a quiet song. "Respect," she whispered, "really is a language." And finally the world had learned how to listen. It started as one night, one moment, one sentence. But sometimes that's all it takes for the world to shift a little closer toward kindness. A year had passed since the night Maya walked out of the Silver Finch with her head held high and her hands shaking. The video had stopped trending. The cameras had moved on. But her words, they never really left. Everywhere she went, people recognized her voice before her face. A teacher in a coffee shop would smile and say, "You reminded my students that courage can be quiet." A street vendor would nod respectfully. "You spoke for all of us who can't afford to." Even children sometimes whispered, "That's her," and then giggled like they'd seen something magical. But Maya didn't see herself as a symbol. She was just someone who had gotten tired of swallowing her own truth. One Saturday, she and Sienna met at their usual spot. A little corner cafe with green vines climbing the brick walls. The air smelled like cinnamon and rain. I still can't believe how much changed because of one moment, Sienna said, stirring her coffee. Maya smiled. Funny thing is, I didn't even think. It just came out. Maybe that's what made it real, Sienna said softly. You didn't try to sound brave. You just were. They sat in silence for a while, watching strangers pass by. Waiters, delivery riders, office workers, each carrying their own quiet battles. Sienna glanced at Maya. Do you ever think about him? Maya took a breath. Victor? She shook her head. Not really. I hope he found peace. But I don't carry that weight anymore. Sienna nodded. You know, I heard he's living by the coast, alone, teaching business ethics of all things. Maya let out a small laugh. Maybe he finally learned what the word means. They both smiled, not out of revenge, but relief. That afternoon, Maya received an email from the United Nations Language Division. They'd seen her university lecture and wanted her to host a global seminar on communication with empathy. Her heart raced as she read it again and again. It felt surreal. The same dream she'd buried under bills and broken pride now calling her name again. She closed her eyes and whispered, Mama, we made it. Weeks later, she stood on a stage in Geneva. Lights dim, flags lined across the hall, translators sitting behind glass booths. The microphone buzzed softly as she began. Language, she said, isn't just how we speak. It's how we see one another. It's how we decide who deserves to be heard. Her voice carried steady and warm through the room. She told them about that night, without names, without shame, about how dignity can sound like defiance, and silence can sound like surrender. Power without empathy, she said, isn't strength. It's noise. When she finished, the hall stood in applause, not because she was famous, but because she was right. After the conference, she received messages from people all over the world. Waiters, nurses, students, interpreters, thanking her for giving their silence a sound. One message stood out. It was from a man named Victor H. She almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say you taught me more about respect than my entire career did. Thank you for holding up a mirror. I needed it. Maya read it twice, then smiled softly. She didn't reply. Some lessons don't need a response. Months later, Maya returned to her hometown. Her father's recovery had been slow but steady. They sat on the porch one evening, the sky blushing gold as the sun melted into the horizon. You've done well, Hiha, he said. But tell me, after all this, what did you learn? Maya thought for a moment, then answered quietly. That dignity isn't something people can take. It's something you choose to keep. Her father nodded. And respect? She smiled. Respect is like a language. The moment you forget it, the world stops listening. As the streetlights flickered on, Maya looked out at the quiet town. Somewhere, a child laughed. A door creaked open. Life continued, simple and full. She realized that her story was no longer about one night or one man. It was about everyone who'd ever been told they were less, and chose, even for a second, to believe otherwise. Her name would fade from headlines, but her words would linger in classrooms, workplaces, kitchens, and hearts. Because courage, she learned, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just speaks clearly and refuses to whisper again. The camera of life pulled back. City lights glowing in the distance, a faint melody rising like wind through open windows. A quiet voice echoed through it all, calm and certain. Respect has no accent. Dignity has no price. And sometimes the smallest voice can teach the world how to listen.